This interview is part of the Global Feminisms Project, a multi-site international project sponsored by the University of Michigan. Our goal in undertaking these oral histories is to create and preserve conversations with women whose activism and/or scholarship has contributed in critical ways to issues that are important to women. Thank you for agreeing to participate in the Global Feminisms Project. We are going to spend about an hour talking about several topics. We will start by talking about your life and how you became involved in the work that led up to the work that you are doing now, your thoughts and insights about your work in the context of the women's movement, and the connections you see between your work and those of activists in other settings. As you think about where you are today, I'd like to start by asking you about your personal history. What were your early years like?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Caroline Rucah. I am from Western Kenya. I work for an organization called Western Kenya LBQT Feminist Forum as the director of the organization. And at the organization, we center intersectional feminism at the core of all our advocacy actions. So I would say, where did I start? I started a long time ago. So I was a teenage mom. So by 19, I was a mom. My son is a teenager now. Yeah. So at 19, I was a mom, and this was. After that, like, I started my activism, I think a long time ago in high school. In high school, I used to be in various clubs, debate clubs. I used to be in counseling clubs, and that is where I think I started to, be a voice. I could stand up for folks, and I used to stand up for misfits, people that nobody would ever want to listen to, people that would always be accused of, grievous things. I did not know about my sexuality then, and in high school, lesbians and bisexuals and people that were exploring their sexuality were judged harshly, were treated badly, were always expelled from school, suspended from school. And at that particular time, I found I was in leadership in school, but I could be that leader that would always take the side of this person that would not be listened to generally by the administration or other leaders within the school. So I was that kind of leader, and and I just never would take any form of oppression on anybody, and this actually made me lock heads with so many people, the administration, mostly because then I was supposed to be, I was a leader in school, I was a prefect, and I was supposed to, always be on the side of administration, always be on the side of the teachers, but I wasn't always. So throughout my years, I was demoted. Every year I would be demoted from being a prefect, and every year I would also be elected by the students because we used to conduct elections to be a prefect, because I was that voice of them, the students. I continued my activism in college, and not really, that's really fast forward, but immediately after high school I got pregnant as a young girl, as a teenage parent at that particular time. My pregnancy actually was a form of rebellion because my parents, my dad, I came from a very humble, very poor background, and my parents, actually my dad did not see the need to educate a lady. I'm the firstborn in my family, in a family of 6. And so I decided, well, let me rebel. They want me to be a woman in society. Let me be a woman in society. So then I got pregnant, and I think my son really saved me, because at that particular time when I was pregnant and living in poverty and all that, I said, this is not the life I want to lead. And now I will have a responsibility as well. I am bringing a life into this world. This is not the life I want to lead. And I also didn't have an option. I didn't have information on sexual reproductive health. I didn't have information on anything. So I pretty much, I was literally almost blind when throughout the pregnancy. So at that particular time, I started my advocacy as a voice for young and teenage moms at a youth project in Kisumu. And from then, that is what kickstarted my advocacy. So I became a volunteer for teenage moms and young moms project by an organization called Tungane Youth Project. And I volunteered as a peer educator. I could mobilize folks. I could facilitate some sessions on how to, like basic life skills. So from there, after a period of time, I decided to take myself back to school and just enrolled to do community development work at a diploma level. I was really passionate about accounting because I wanted to be an accountant. I was very good at math and I really wanted to be an accountant, but it was expensive, accountancy at that particular time. So I decided I also like working with the community. Let me enroll for a diploma in community work. So the money that I could get during voluntarism, it was very little. It was around like $3 per, maybe after every 2 days. So it was very little money. But then I could manage between my child's food and also my tuition. And sometimes I could not attend classes, just online. So it was a struggle. I took a long period of time to finish my diploma at that time. But then I really wanted to do this, so I continued, and I was doing really good at work. I was promoted and then promoted again and then promoted again. So I could be able to, sustain taking care of the baby and also paying for my tuition. So at that particular time, I then focused on school programs. I was given a chance to work with all the youth groups within the area. And then later I was taken to the training department because I was really good at speaking, being with people. I think I was good. Oh, that is what they made me believe. Yeah. So that was pretty much what propelled me into advocacy. Later, around 2010, I was after my promotion, I could pay for my accountancy course. So I enrolled in my accountancy course in 2010, around July, and then I continued my accountancy part-time as I also work as I was in charge at this particular time of a program called Sugar. It was an edutainment kind of intervention that targeted also the youth as well. But it also, like, this is the first time that I was coming into reality. I was battling with my sexuality as well, yeah.
Right.
So I really loved being part of this program because it showcased some queer relationship, but it was really minimal because it was just introducing these, like, there is this kind of relationship, and it was really minimal, and it is something that used to be frowned upon during my whole time that I engaged with the program. In 2012, fast forward, after, like, as I continued this program, and I was in school as well for accountancy, a friend of mine, he worked, a colleague of mine, also a schoolmate of mine, he worked for an LGBTI organization in Kisumu. I think it was the first LGBTI organization in Kisumu.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and he worked for the organization as their accountant, and we were in school together. So there was an LBQ organization that was forming at this particular time in 2012, and they needed someone that would come in because they didn't have funds, they didn't have resources, would come in to work as an accountant and just give, some volunteer accountancy services. I was like, well, that person is me. They don't need to pay me. I will give them some of my time, as long as they allow me to go in school and also continue with my day work that is paying my bills, and I will definitely give them my time. And also, like, I also wanted to be in this space to really know queer people there. People like me there, because like my friend, I knew he was queer, he was gay. I was very, very friendly to the community, and that is why he came to me, so that I can, he knew that I would definitely take up this position and be willing to work with the organization. I had not come out then. I was really, really in the closet. And so that's how I joined the LGBTI movement as an accountant in the closet. But so when I joined, they thought they had an ally in me. But I was like, when I got there, I was marveled at the community that is there, at the people that I met. I was in shock. I was like, is this the Kisumu that I've been living in all my life? Are queer people in this? Like, I thought I was the only one. Right. And I didn't know there's such a community in Kisumu. So I went there as an accountant, and I really loved it. I could definitely give all my time, like most of my time I would go there and forget about my day work, my day job. Right. So that was the case. And then in 2013, in 2012 December, the organization got their first funding. They were paying me like a very small stipend, but I was like, oh my God, I am done. I want to be here. I want to commit more of my time here, because then I can contribute to resource mobilization efforts, and then we can get something to pay me to be here. But I was fully there. I had already also started coming out. But just to, the close circles within the organization, leadership as well, the people that I felt safe around, my friend that introduced me to this opportunity. That is when I started coming out, but in very, very, very tiny bits. Then I worked for the organization as an accountant for a year. But I felt that, well, I don't want to do accountancy. I want to be in the field where the action is, like where real people, real issues, real situations happen. And I thought that this would also be an opportunity for me to, be able to interact with the community that I've looked for so long. And this is an opportunity to find it. So then I requested to be moved to programs, and when an opportunity came, I was like made hybrid. So I would work within accounts in the accounts office, but also do some programmatic work. And it went on for some time. 2015, I was full-time within the programs department, and in 2016 March, I moved from that organization now to the LGBTI organization that my referee was working at as a project officer for a health program that they had brought on board. This health program, I think, is what contributed to the trajectory of my activism and advocacy this far. Because at that particular time, this project not only helped me come out more, but also helped me be able to accept myself. It also gave me an opportunity to grow as a person career-wise and be very creative, because I remember I was there 2 months and I was promoted to be in charge of the whole of the health dockets. And after I was promoted, I had a say in what programs look like. And one thing that I would really want to say is that after going to this is a space that I went and disrupted as well, because it was predominantly male. all the senior management were male, persons assigned male at birth, gay and bisexual, both were either gay or bisexual men. And there was nobody, no person assigned female at birth or trans women that were in any position other than project officers and below. So I was like also the first person at that particular time to be a program officer in charge of a whole programmatic docket. And this was something that I really liked, but also it didn't come like easily. Yeah, that is when I started to embark on my feminism also journey, and just wanting to turn the whole space into a feminist space. So during that particular time, when I went to work there were no basic facilities. For instance, like changing rooms for women when they're in their menses, or where you would dispose your sanitary towels after changing, you know. So we used to when you change, you take your sanitary towel back to your bag and then you will dispose it later. So it was predominantly men who understood nothing about women. I remember there was one of our beneficiaries that used to come with a very small baby. She was one of our peer educators, and she could change the diapers of the baby and would also pack the diapers and take them back, because there was no, like, it was as major as very, very basic things that you'd imagine a space would have. But since it's really predominantly men, they were not there. So like ensuring that this space would even think about, you are an LGBTI space. Where is the L? Where are the women in that space? Yeah. So it was quite back and forth, and not a very beautiful process, but it was a process that needed to happen for the organization to get to that point that it was. So that was 2016, and that is the same time that I also started thinking about LBQ women. It was an LGBTI organization with the programs that were specific to gay and bisexual men, with a bias to HIV. Yeah. So why are we again an LGBTI organization if we don't have any programs towards LBQ women? Why am I even here as a queer woman with zero programs for my tribe? So that is when I started thinking around that. And the goodness with the space is that I was accorded that space to work and question and critique, and also be creative to develop programs that then would be geared towards LBQ women. And that is when I thought about Western Kenya LBQT Feminist Forum. It started from there, on just trying to question where are programs for women. And so I worked there at the LGBTI network until the time that I resigned to officially be one of the founders and executive directors for Western Kenya LBQ Organizations Collective, LBQT Feminist Forum. Sorry, I'm confusing two roles that I'm holding. Yeah, so that is how, like, my activism journey. So in 2018, fast forward after 2016, the realization that there is a gap for LBQ programming, but the need to also utilize the available resources there are, so that we can program for LBQ persons. So the LBQ movement actually then started with just us meeting as queer persons coming from various areas to conduct feminist forums where we just sit and talk and have discussions and vent and you know, and say, like, what's happening. Yeah. But then it also gave us an opportunity to think and ask ourselves, HIV, is it our priority? what is our priority? Because
Right.
we, like, what is it that we want? We didn't know at that particular time. We are saying HIV is not our priority, but what do we want? And maybe, just maybe, HIV could be our priority because we also had LBQ persons who are living with HIV. And it is a discussion that was not, it is a discussion that the feminist forums that we used to have opened up. And then in 2018, we received a grant. Of course, it came through the network, the LGBTI network, but it was specific for LBQ and IT-agency persons. The first ever grant that was specific to LBQ and IT-agency persons from the Australia Lesbian Foundation. And this grant was just to help us continue convening the feminist forums and also ask ourselves what our needs are and how we want to go about that. So it was like a strategic thinking kind of grant.
Right.
Yes, and then so we managed to do that with the grant and then gave birth to the LBQ movement. So various LBQ organizations started coming up. From that grant, we were able to strengthen the grassroots LBQ movement because all the feminists used to come to Kisumu. So the western part of Kenya is very vast and it's very rural. So the distance, it took feminists to come from the grassroots to Kisumu, the central place. Like somebody would take 3 hours one way, 4 hours one way. It was a hassle. It was hard. So we decided to capacity build ourselves so that we are able to host these feminist forums within the grassroots. And that is how the feminist movement started growing bit by bit. Conversations around movements building started growing bit by bit. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, that is when we officially registered Western Kenya LBQT Feminist Forum. And from then, we've been active as an organization, focusing on giving voice and creating platforms for access for LBQ and IT-agency persons. And through like 4 areas of focus, that is advocacy, where we ensure that policies, systems, structures are inclusive enough, an enabling environment is created through value clarifications, presenting memorandums, presenting, research papers, and also focusing on inclusive healthcare because we realize that SRHR as an umbrella was a need for LBQ women, and not just specifically HIV. HIV was within the SRHR. We had other issues. We had issues around gender affirming care for trans women and trans men that were in this space. And then we also looked at safety, security, and protection because our country criminalizes our existence. It criminalizes same-sex consensual acts between adults. And there is always violence. During the COVID period, there was a really increase in sexual, gender-based violence and intimate partner violence that actually even made us to officially start operations during the pandemic. And then finally, since we were a young movement, a young grassroots movement, we also wanted to focus on movement building, where we don't just grow alone as Western Kenya LBQT Feminist Forum, we call it Wycliffe, but also grow together with the other LBQ movements that are within the region, and also put in place systems and structures that would then help our organization be able to run our programs and be able to resource mobilize, be able to manage our finances. And then last 2022, we were able to come together after various convenings and formed also a Western Kenya LBQ Organizations Collective that currently hosts 12 nascent grassroots organizations within Western Kenya and just to, with the focus of, synergizing our efforts, jointly resourcing for our needs, and also centering collective care and healing as a movement so that we are able to grow together. Yeah, and I am the current chair to the collective right now, which is the now we're
Very
talking
cool.
about. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
If you feel comfortable talking about this some more, I'm curious about what you have felt your experience has been like living in a place where your identity is criminalized and like subject to such controversy and violence.
Yeah. So I always what I always say is that those kinds of difficult situations that I have gone through as a queer person, as a queer parent, as a queer person living in the grassroots, all those intersecting identities that I have that have contributed to my oppression, that have put me into very harsh conditions, are actually the reason why I do what I do. Because I want to see a change.
Right.
Because I want to see a difference created. Because if I don't do it for myself, for my community, for my children who will, So it has not been easy. It has not been easy from being outed, to the community and the rejection. And one thing that being outed to me why it really felt so bad, and I really felt strongly about, like, one thing that I told myself even getting into the space is that I will never, ever, ever come out to my family.
Wow.
Yeah, because my family is very religious. My dad is very, very religious. My mom as well. And we have an extended family with its issues, its politics, its dynamics, and I have had to conform. I have had to get married.
Right.
I have had to have children for the society. And I am not very masculine presenting. I am, like, I believe in androgyny. So I pass most of the time. Yeah. And because I pass, I used to tell myself, I don't need to come out. Because I believe one of the things that has happened to me over the period is that I've had to be evicted from my house. I have had to be attacked. I have been carjacked. I have been assaulted physically. I have been attacked verbally and even on social media. And this does not only affect me, but it affects my children because I stay with them. So I always felt that my family was a safe haven for my children, because my life is not very constant. But my family's home, my mom's place, my sister's place, those were very constant places that I wanted to be safe havens for my children. That if I have to, relocate, if I have to run away from a situation that would put me in danger, then my children would have a place to go that is safe. So I was like, it is a decision I made. But then, my family came to find out about my sexuality. And I always feel that it's also a blessing in disguise that I don't have to hide anymore. I can live my authentic self. I of course, I get questions. I get faced with issues of conformity, but it has helped in a certain way. I feel that I'm freer, that they know about my sexuality than when they didn't know. And I really expected that this would be a backlash on my children. That was the scariest moment. That what will happen to my children if, let's say, I have to I have been evicted in a place and they need a constant, they need time to readjust. They have school, they have,
Right.
you know. So, but I am really glad and happy for my mom, because I think my mom is that person that gives me so much strength because of how she accepted me, but also how she made this a non-issue, literally, by not wanting to have a conversation around it. Yeah. So it's a good thing, but also a bad thing, because I don't know what she's thinking about, but it is also like a subject, like, don't ask, don't tell. I'm not asking, don't tell me. Yeah. But she has never ever attacked me because of my sexuality, because of my work, because of every other thing. On the other hand, she has had to be thrown out of church because of my sexuality.
Wow, right.
Yeah. And well, it has not come back to me. So I feel, well, it is support. It is support to some extent. Yeah. My dad, on the other hand, it's something that we don't talk about most of the times, but it is in the small things that would happen. It's in the small questions that would come up. It's in the small subtle things that would, you know, would crop up, and you're like, we are not yet there, or we will never be there. Yeah, but it is a good thing that it has not affected, like, the relationship they have with my children, because that was what I was safeguarding, and it has never affected that, and that is something that I'm really happy about. My son is 16. He's in high school, and he stays with my dad. Oh. Yes, and he comes during the holidays, because his high school is next to my dad. He stays with my dad. Right now, I am abroad. My daughter is staying with my younger sister at my place. And my youngest one, my youngest daughter is 6 months. Oh. She is with my follower, big sister. So, like, they have continuously been that support system for my children, because that is something that I always want to guard with all my life, and that is why I want to see some change, so that my children don't have to constantly face discrimination or stigma because of my sexuality, that my children get everything despite my sexuality. Yeah. So yeah, criminalization or not, criminalization has really affected us greatly. The patriarchal system has made me to conform in certain ways, in certain places, so that, you know, so that I can be able to navigate. But then we navigate regardless, yeah? Right. Those uncomfortable situations are what have made me have a voice and want to stand up for other people like me that are facing those uncomfortable situations.
Right. Yeah, that's a wonderful perspective. Do you have conversations with your children about, like, the discrimination you faced in your work as a feminist and as an activist?
So, like, one thing that I always do is raise my children in a feminist perspective. Yeah. So I try to raise my children, like, my daughter right now is awesome feminist. She's 5, and she's like, she is very open-minded. She is very inclusive. She will ask something if she doesn't know, and once you tell her, she will definitely go by it. She will ask questions to know. Yeah. Right. And that is how I also raised my son, so that in case you have a question, ask politely, ask with dignity. Do not make someone lose their dignity over how you ask a question. My daughter, for instance, had never seen someone in a wheelchair, and I have a friend on a wheelchair. So when my friend came to visit me someday, my daughter met her, and she was like, "Mommy, why is Auntie Gracie like that?" And then I told her, I explained Auntie Gracie is like that because of 1, 2, 3 things.
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, okay." So like she encompasses that and even educates other people. Like she would tell you, like one of the things that she used to do is tell our house girl to ensure that when Auntie Gracie is around, the seats are moved to the wall. Mommy moves the seats to the wall when Auntie Gracie is around, so that her wheelchair can be able to pass. So she's like, that is what I want to raise my children to be. What I want. My house has been a safe space, and I've been able to host persons that have faced violence or that have faced security threats, and I've hosted them at my place, masculine presenting women, trans men, or other. And my daughter would ask, "Is she a boy or is she a girl?" And then I would tell her she's a person. I say, "Okay, what's their name? What's the name?" Because our Swahili is very gender neutral.
Okay.
Yeah, so she would ask, "How do I call them?"
Yeah.
And then I would say, "Call them by their name. Go and ask their name." And then they would go and ask. Then that is what they will use. Yeah, that is what my child will use. So that is something that I want to instill in my children. But then there is a problem as well. Yeah, this I'm able to do and to mold. I think to mold and condition my children, like when they are young, so that they have that kind of, notion growing up. When they hit teenage, because like in school, for instance, my son, I've stayed with him up to when he got to high school. When he got to high school, he went to a boarding school. The boarding schools in our country are divided into the binaries of male boarding schools and female boarding schools. So he goes to boarding school, and then he gets the system there. The system of patriarchy is there. The system that tells you women need to do this and men need to do this. And then that conflicts them. So there's that kind of peer pressure. There's that kind. So then you'd see some sort of rebellion. So that happens. That has happened with my son, where he has rebelled. He has made me very angry, but we always sit down and talk about it. We always sit down. I always remind him where we've come from.
Right.
I had my son when I was very young, and like we look like we grew up together, because I raised him when I had too much growing up to do, and we were literally growing up together. So they need to get like I think it's a responsibility that I put in them on him, but also what I have always expected with him is to never forget where we've come from.
Right.
Never forget what we've gone through. So I think that always brings him to sovereignty, but also I cannot run away from the fact that there's a whole different community out there. There's all kinds of pressure out there. There's social media out there, and definitely he gets access to that, and it will definitely affect how he thinks in one way or the other. But I always believe that in the foundation that I put, if it doesn't get him 100%, but it will be a bigger percentage, a bigger chunk of it will not conform to the oppression.
Yeah, that's important. Can you tell me a little bit about what the significance of feminism is to you, like within your own life, within the work that you've done and continue to do, maybe how you define feminism?
Okay. So how I define feminism? I believe feminism looks at equality for all and ensuring that all are represented, all have equal opportunity. and with the main goals of feminism centering women empowerment, autonomy, issues around economic empowerment, human rights, yeah? So I believe that is what feminism is, and that is what feminism should look like, and those are the goals of feminism.
Right.
And that is what I believe I am and I want to be. And I believe that everybody should be a feminist and should aspire to be feminist. Yeah, because feminism, feminism looks at, people wholesomely and not wanting to leave anyone behind,
Right.
and not wanting to see someone being oppressed. Yeah, because we recognize that there are systems of oppression, and these systems of oppression come because of various structures, various political systems, and various notions that are there over time, and these systems of oppression actually always oppress, have always been there to oppress persons and issues around sexism. So, and they're intersecting. One person can have different layers of oppression because of the different identities that they come with.
Right.
Yeah, as a queer person, as a non-binary person who does not conform to, the binary notion, as the pansexual person, as a parent,
Right.
as a person from the rural areas, as a person who cannot access resources. There are so many levels to my disadvantage that have been created by various systems, including patriarchy, including sexism, including capitalism, and all these systems are there. And they oppress people in one way or the other. And as feminists, this is what we are trying to go against.
Right.
We are trying to say everybody is deserving regardless of who they are, regardless of their identities, regardless of who they love, regardless of how they look like, regardless of their ability, regardless of their race. That is feminism. Feminism looks at bringing everybody with all their intersecting identities on the table, making decisions about their lives, and actually really contributing. So that is feminism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is do you think your definition of feminism has evolved at all over the course of your career and your work as an activist?
Of course, yes. Yes. It has really evolved, and to be more inclusive, especially around language, around my perspective generally, my understanding of feminism and how that looks like has really evolved. Initially, I used to believe that feminism is very elitist, is very it's very manualized, but that is not feminism. People contribute to all these feminist goals in different areas. A woman who sells vegetables in the rural areas of the slums of Kisumu, that voices out and does not allow other women to be discriminated, is a feminist in their own way, is contributing towards equal opportunity to folks. A student that is standing up for trans persons that are being discriminated, that can't be allowed to access, let's say, changing facilities, it's a feminist. Yeah.
Right.
So we contribute towards feminism in very different aspects, and I've been able to deconstruct my very, very radical notions around feminism and actually, and misandry as well, to the extent that I am able to have conversations and allow for fair representation of folks on the table,
Right.
and even hear a voice of how someone would want to contribute to attainment of gender equality, regardless of your sex or your gender or all the other identities that you possess. Yeah.
Right.
So I believe, like, my ideology, also my feminist methodology has really evolved over time. Yeah, there was this time that it is smashing patriarchy that I wanted to do, and anything that would look and seem patriarchal is something that I would go for. But then there is times I thought I can approach smashing patriarchy in a different way than I used to approach it. I would not, like, take time to explain things that I believe somebody should know or are supposed to know.
Right.
But then I'm like, well, okay. It is maybe lack of information that is making someone an a-hole, sorry for cussing. So maybe they need information. Maybe I can generate information that would speak to this person. And just realizing that, even with issues around oppression, there has been conditioning that has been going on for decades and decades. And these systems have been there for a very, very long time. And people have been conditioned to work in certain ways.
Right.
Religion has been a great tool of oppression for us queer persons, and for us women, and towards so many identities. Religion has been a big thing, and we are still, some of us are still very religious, some of us are still very spiritual, and it really took time for me to be able to even reconcile my sexuality with my spirituality, because I was like, well, religion is telling me I am a sin. Maybe I am a sin, yeah. Maybe I need to find a way of solving this. Maybe these bad things are happening to me because I am going against my religion. Yeah, and like really having so much internalized homophobia as well, but also sometimes wanting to conform, asking yourself questions, conversion therapy because of this internalized homophobia. But then with time, I have had to grow as a person to be more accepting of myself.
Right.
And that has also really changed my ideologies, my feminist ideologies, my feminist thinking. My experiences have changed, my values have changed, my lived realities has improved as well. So yeah, I believe my ideology around feminism has evolved over time.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Thinking about religion in particular, do you think there's a way for you and your identity as a member of the LGBTQ community to coexist with your identity as a religious person?
Yes, I believe it is possible. It is possible for me to be able to reconcile my religion, my spirituality, and my sexuality by just ensuring that, I be able to look beyond the oppression that comes with religion, the tool to control my body and my autonomy that religion brings, and the other teachings that definitely would be more inclusive, and how religion has also been turned and weaponized against female bodies and women generally. Because definitely the patriarchy does not rest. The patriarchy finds ways and means to be able to dictate as women. Yeah. So me being cognizant and having my agency takes power away from people that would want you to use religion as a tool to oppress me, because my agency will make me reconcile with my religion. I will understand that my religion does not need to conform to what people think about religion. I need to understand that religion, like, it's what I believe in as a person vis-a-vis what people think I need to believe in. So I think being able to reconcile that, being able to, you know, have that strength, it's like really inner strength to be able to, you know, even question some of the teachings and really conceptualize what those kinds of teachings, religious teachings, meant or mean. Really, that is one thing, but also how being able to ask the question. One of the things that religion says in my context is that homosexuality is a thing of the West, homosexuality is an African, homosexuality is frowned upon by God, and quoting scriptures. But the Bible is also a thing of the West. It came with colonization. We were given the Bible on one hand and colonized on the other hand, and oppressed by colonizers. Yeah. So how would you say one thing from the West is good and the other thing from the West is bad? And I believe that from our histories, from the literature that is written, from the narrations that we have, most of our history has been erased over time, but there are still narrations, there are still histories, there are still texts that we can get about our histories and how we can link homosexuality to before colonization, yeah, and even like our day-to-day living within the country. So I believe what religion just brought during colonization, it brought homophobia, it brought the hate. Yeah. It didn't bring the love. So let's take back our love.
Yeah.
Before colonization.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are some of the things that you have in mind that you'd like to be working towards with your organization in the future in terms of activism? Or what are some of maybe the projects you're working on now that are really exciting to you?
Okay. So I will answer the question either way, like what things that I'm really looking forward to work towards, or the things that we are working on that are exciting. So one of the things that I really think is beautiful for my organization is being part of a movement that is so vibrant, that is so growing, and that is so grassroots. And being able to, you know, break barriers and access spaces like this as a visiting scholar for as a TFVSA right now, this is something that I believe an opportunity that the grassroots or where I come from, we don't access. But because of this movement that we are building, we have become very vibrant, and we are going to those spaces and knocking on those doors that we've never thought we can knock and enter. Yeah. So just being able to even be part of this residency by the Center for Education of Women is really a big thing for me as part of the movement building efforts that we are doing in Western Kenya. And movement building is one thing that I'm really passionate about. You'd see from even my journey of activism, I started to think about how we can organize as LBQT persons. And this movement building journey that we've started around COVID time, but it's still growing. It's still, you know, it's so vibrant, is bringing people on board, is giving agency to the grassroots, is something that I'm really happy about, that we've started and that I want to see grow.
Right.
Yeah, and we are committed as founders and co-founders of the organizations that are making up this movement to see this movement grow, to even be able to tell, like coming here to tell our story
Right.
as part of the global feminist program is one thing that I want to do, we want to do, to ensure that we create more visibility to this
Right.
very young nascent movement that is doing amazing job, that is very, it's not funded, it has very low funding, very low resources, but we have a great vision and we are very hopeful that we will definitely get there with most of our stories being told, with telling our stories, with telling our experiences, with showing our realities on the ground. We will definitely get there. So that is something I'm really passionate about. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is research and documentation and just narrative work generally, because as queer persons, our stories are not written, our stories are not documented, our experiences are not there. Research work towards queer women identities is very limited to not there at all. In Kenya, there is basically very, it's like a drop in the ocean, limited research. You may find 2 or 3 research on LBQ and ITGNC persons. I am really passionate about using data to change policies, because when we ask for resources, we are told, where's the evidence? Yeah.
Right.
But when we ask to change policies, they also ask us, where is the evidence? We don't have evidence to prove that we need research resources. Yeah. So like for us to even conduct research, we need resources, and for us to get resources, they need evidence that we need resources.
Right.
So it is such a challenging thing. But from these kinds of conversation, I think, I hope, and I'm really hopeful that it will make sense that feminist researchers is funded, that feminist spaces are funded, that feminist LBQ persons are given resources to collect data to inform policy change. And once we have policy change, we can inform attitudinal change. One of the reasons that we have stigma and discrimination towards queer persons is because of retrogressive policies, is because of criminalization laws like the penal code. It's because of non-inclusive language in policies. And that is what we want to do as a movement. Ensure we are included in those spaces that matter. We are included in policy frameworks. Being included in policy framework then will mean that we are programmed for. It will mean that the government will budget for us. It will mean that we will have resources to address the needs that we are having.
Right.
But we will definitely need resources for that, and we will definitely need to generate data towards that. So research, data collection is another thing that I'm really passionate about. And narrative work, as I said, narrative work, telling our stories. There is a whole movement that is happening within Western Kenya right now, a whole movement that is coming up. This needs to be documented so that we are able to see where are we going, how are we going there, how do we even look back and say, well, the movement started in Western Kenya in, let's say, 2008. This far, where are we? How did we get there? We need to document that. It's good for our histories. It's good so that we are not erased. It's good so that our memories are not erased. So that is another thing that I'm really passionate about, that I would really want to see grow, and really putting effort to resource mobilize for the same. And finally, it's around mental health and wellness and collective care and healing.
Right.
Yeah, because of criminalization, we face so many mental health issues, depression, stress, anxieties, among others. But we also face very toxic working spaces because we need to center collective care and healing in all its aspects within our workspaces as queer persons, and just prioritize healing justice, taking time out and things like that. And that also needs resources, and we also need to prioritize that as well. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. All right, I think that's all we have for today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Is there anything else? Do you have a question for me, Andrea? Okay. No, not really. But I am really, what I would like to say is that I'm really glad to get this opportunity to be part of this program by Global Feminist, the Global Feminist program, because I believe this is a space that has been created and that will continue to tell stories of Western Kenya, for instance. Like Kenya is very big. Stories that are always being told are from the capital, Nairobi. Right. We have a whole life in Western Kenya that is going on within the grassroots, within the rural areas, and that is where we face too much stigma and discrimination. And those are stories that don't get to see the light of day most of the time. So I'm really glad that you folks took your time to have this conversation with us. And like, I'm really hoping we will definitely bring on board more voices from Western Kenya so that our stories are told. That will create visibility on the work that we are doing. And that will like really continue amplifying our voices. Storytelling gives voice, and we've been voiceless for a very long time. This is a great opportunity that we are having. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you here, and thank you for sharing your story and for participating in this conversation with us.
Thank you.